Good morning. Welcome to Live with Liz. Happy Wednesday. Today we're talking about webinars and whether they are still valuable for law firms. I'm having a morning, so if you haven't grabbed your coffee, go ahead. I'll be here at some point, or it's recorded, I'm sure. And yeah, join me. Coffee. Happy morning. About a day ago, maybe 24 hours ago, we decided to host a very sophisticated um, survey, a poll on LinkedIn to see what people actually thought about this. And I did do, tiny bit of research to validate my own opinion before starting this topic and live with Liz this morning. But that poll kind of also validated my opinion a little bit. But what we were asking is what you think about whether or not webinars are still valuable for law firms. And we know during the pandemic that we kind of, I don't know if everyone experienced this, but I certainly experienced this, became super fatigued when it came to all of these webinars and Zoom calls and being online all the time and not seeing people. And now kind of feel like, okay, maybe there's still some remnants of the pandemic around, but we have become used to this kind of new situation, except that we're getting back to travel and seeing people and conferences and kind of regular life. So I thought it would be interesting to kind of look back and say, well, are these still holding value? Can you use them to promote a law firm? And what's the best way to do it if you are? And so I have been asked a number of times what that short answer is. Are they still valuable? So if there is a short answer, I'm going to say yes. But like a lot of lawyers out there, it who would answer the traditional, it depends. It likely does depend. And actually, I do believe it depends. It's not everything is valuable. I think people have gotten familiar with the webinars so much so that changing their name doesn't even matter anymore. I know that the other day I counted 12 invitations to webinars in one day. I don't know how many you're getting. I know I am signed up to a plethora of newsletters and law publications. And so these are all in the legal industry, many of them sponsored by law firms, a lot of them not sponsored by law firms, but by other organizations that are adjacent to the legal industry, somehow related. Some of them are NGOs, some of them are um, other types of sponsors, legal tech companies also hosting these things. And they do it in a number of different ways. Those online symposiums and uh, virtual gatherings, digital experience. Some of them tout themselves as being educational and thus having more value. Some of them do offer CLE. Maybe that is the value you're looking for. And some of them are now trying to capture a stream of revenue. Even before, I think a lot were, but we've seen a lot of these types of events online be free for a long time. And I'm seeing more and more of them having a payment contribution of some sort attached to them. Generally, I've seen them be quite reasonable for valuable content if that's what I'm looking for, but not necessarily across the board. Now, there is something that I find that some law firms are doing and that probably could be avoided if you're trying to decide whether or not these are valuable. Don't just do a webinar to do a webinar. Our inboxes are totally full with webinar invitations. We have to make sure that they're relevant. We have to make sure that they have value for the target audience, and we have to make sure that you're inviting the target audience. Otherwise, it's just clutter, or it's going to spam, or it's frustrating, and it's like, oh, geez, another webinar. Even if I register, don't attend, and not expected to attend, and can watch it later. So we're not just hosting webinars to host webinars, but we're putting some thought into it to make sure that they're valuable. That kind of forward planning and being considerate about what we're putting out there is going to be helpful for us in the long run too. I think a lot of us, and okay, maybe I just speak for myself, but we are getting familiar with this idea and can tell when something is truly promotional and when it has value. So this is that line that has a little bit of a balance with what we're looking for. When you put together a panel for a webinar and it is only the partners of your firm, and a lot of it is touting what your legal services look like. This is straight up promotional material. Does it really add value? I'm going to say no, it doesn't. And because a lot of that information is available on your website or through social media, maybe that information is kind of a little too salesy, even though it's shrouded in some sort of educational format. So you don't want to just have a webinar with only people from your firm discussing a variety of legal services that you provide. Now, you can have videos that are explainer videos about who you are. You can utilize that to create short form videos, which we talked about before with using Reels or the shorts on YouTube or something like that, and having introductory videos. That's not the same thing as a webinar and getting a bunch of people to sign up and then, only to simply state who you are and not share something meaningful. If there's something relevant, like if you have a new law in your jurisdiction, or if you have some sort of a change, or you're doing some sort of case review, maybe you have an annual, um, and maybe it is educational, but an annual review of what's happening in your jurisdiction, maybe an update. And this is the time of year I start to, think about that, or maybe you would have already started thinking about that, to host a webinar in December or January that kind of wraps up 2022, looks ahead to 2023. Those kinds of things I would find valuable if I'm interested in your jurisdiction. And maybe that's the time where you would have multiple people from your firm on a panel for giving a webinar. Now, there is another channel to doing webinars that can have a promotional component and can still add value. And a lot of this comes down to the audience. So what I found is that there are third parties, which you may already be familiar with, that are offering these services of coordinating the webinars and using their own audience, using their own networks for distribution to promote these things. Hey, good morning, Leah. Um, and that can be incredibly valuable if you've got the right topic, the right speakers, and you're targeting the right audience. Now, these could be legal publishers that are organizing these and using their channels to advertise the webinars for you. This means that there would be a commercial investment attached to it for your firm, but that you could have an opportunity to promote certain areas of expertise with the guidance and coordination of a very professional third party that is able to then utilize their audience that should be your target audience to get more eyeballs on the screen, get more attendants who are relevant to you, add perhaps leads that could end up in your CRM. If you don't have a CRM and didn't understand what I just said, let's talk offline. And that is something that could be valuable when it comes to a webinar, but you've got to have the right topic still. You can't just go in and, again, put a lot of partners from the firm, although some people still do with success. But I argue that you would have more success if you had a relevant topic and included additional stakeholders. And that's the additional stakeholders, that's still an opportunity. Maybe you want to put together a panel and you want to honor people, or, you know, celebrate a client's success. Maybe you want to include someone else's expertise to bring them into the fold. And doing so then has this ripple effect on your firm that helps your firm look more esteemed, showcases a network that you have, showcases this connection that you've made, and demonstrates the firm's ability to share that spotlight, but in a very subtle way that nobody's thinking about. But maybe you're bringing together stakeholders from academia. I like to pull together a government representative, maybe pull together someone from the industry space alongside your law firm partners who can then have a conversation or um, some sort of interview style. Maybe you have a discussion or a presentation with slides, but whichever method you choose, it just really needs to be considerate, and you have to think about your target audience needs and make sure that you're marrying up with what it is that they're after, because otherwise it's just a waste of time and it's an extra invite in my inbox that I'm going to delete, or maybe I'm going to register and never ever watch. And maybe that's okay. Maybe you're just after that touch point to connect with other people, to get their information, to get it into your CRM. And then maybe that is the success. And that's the metric you're using to say, okay, it was still worth it. Even though these people never watched, never attended, didn't ask a single question, didn't participate in my polls. And I was trying to see this. I don't know, Leah, if you're still watching, could you check the poll result, what it is now? I think when I went to bed last night, it was 70-30. 70 in favor that webinars are still important and still successful. Firms can use not only to promote themselves, but to help educate clients and become a channel that we've all become familiar with. I'd say the other benefit, something else that just occurred to me, is that, we're pretty used to this by now. It's not that clunky start that we had a few years ago, and everybody's just trying to figure out how to register for the webinar, what to do with the information, how to let people know, invite them, send emails, put it up on social media. No, no, we figured this out. Everybody's sending webinar invites and we know how it works by now. So it's a little bit smoother. And okay, thanks for checking. So I guess in the end, what I would say is that, um, well, we're looking for the poll results still, Leah. That's what we're looking for. If you could just check the LinkedIn poll. And what I would say is, yes, they are still important. They are still helpful. They can still be incredibly valuable for your firm. So I wouldn't give up on webinars, but I would be more careful. Maybe not have them as often. If you were doing weekly or bi-weekly, maybe that's too much. But if you have an important series, if you have something that's relevant to a particular industry, and you marry it up with the time of year that maybe a conference is happening around the same topic, that could be incredibly useful if you do it a few weeks before or a few weeks after. Sharing insights that are current and timely can be beneficial. And you can still take advantage of having, that's funny. I have my comments turned on. I don't always have them turned on, but I really enjoy when you make inappropriate comments that I can't repeat online. Okay. Um, so back to the webinars. Yes, webinars are valuable, and you should probably still do them, but be more considerate about people's time and their inboxes, and don't just send 20 emails ahead of a webinar. Also, if you invite me the day before, I'm probably not going to go. I my schedule is already full. So you want to think about that planning in that aspect of it and say, okay, um, we know that we want to do certain things that, yes, highlight this for somebody, but not beat them down until they finally just register and we get their info. Um, and I did forget to mention before, when you're having these other stakeholders and not just highlighting, partners at your firm, these other stakeholders bring with them their audience and their network that could also be relevant for your firm. So that is another benefit that adds value when you're holding the webinar. And I'm going to go ahead and look for this right now. How many of you participated in the poll? If you didn't see the poll, you could go to the Firm Forward page and check it out there. It's been shared in a lot of different groups. Okay, we have a good amount of votes. The question was, do webinars still benefit law firms? And we've had some pretty good participation, and it's not too far off from where it was last night. It's 75% in favor. Yes, they do still benefit law firms, and 25% saying no. I will not reveal who these bah humbug people are who do not believe that webinars are still beneficial, but I'm in the other camp. I do believe that they are still beneficial for law firms, and that you have to do them right, but you can still find a lot of value in doing them. I also think you need to be transparent about it and figure it out. If you have any questions about webinars, about how we do them, about the planning, about what might be right, for worried about how many emails you're sending out, or about what mix of content you're doing, or what your format looks like. We've been doing a lot of these and are happy to answer any questions you might have. As always, one-off questions about legal marketing and business development are always welcome at solutions@firmforward.com. And have a happy Thanksgiving if you're in the United States or any number of other countries that I've recently learned to celebrate Thanksgiving. I know that this is a little controversial, but I like to think of it as gathering family, friends. Maybe it's your Friendsgiving, and spend time with each other offline. And we'll come back. We'll come back next week and touch base on Live with Liz. Thank you for joining me today, everybody. And, I'm thankful that you were here. Take care.